Wisconsin Eye's 2014 election coverage is brought to you by the Wisconsin Hospital Association. For over 90 years, a valued voice for Wisconsin hospitals, supporting high-quality, high-value care in communities like yours.
Wisconsin Eye is in Eau Claire on the campus of Chippewa Valley Technical College. We are interviewing State Representative Steve Smith. He's from Shell Lake. He's a Democrat seeking re-election in Assembly District 75. Steve, welcome back to Wisconsin Eye.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to be here.
A programming note, Wisconsin Eye appreciates the support of the Wisconsin Hospital Association, which represents more than 139 hospitals and health systems, for making these candidate interviews possible. You're finishing your first term, and there's a question I'd like to ask legislators when they're finishing their first term, especially in the Assembly. What issues did you work the hardest on or specialize in, Steve?
Well, I was on the Small Business Committee, and so it would be, and we left the end of the session. There was a hearing on my small business jobs tax credit, and no exec on it. And
talk about that bill.
Well, that bill would give a 15% tax credit for independent small businesses, independently owned and operated, $5 million or less in gross receipts, and 25 or fewer eligible employees. And Representative Tolkien, liked the ideas. He wanted to flesh out the traps, and it's going to probably come back in the future.
Okay.
So,
well, in a campaign year when everybody's talking about jobs, how come it didn't get anywhere?
Well, interesting you should ask that, because, here I was, the second oldest new kid on the block, started the session listening. And a lot of representatives, both sides of the aisles, were talking about their campaigning in 2012 at the doorsteps of their districts, and how they heard jobs, jobs, jobs. And I was really hopeful. But yet, if you look at a priority by the time allotted, the priority of the majority was not jobs. I mean, they spent very few bills or time on floor debate concerning jobs.
What would have been the price tag of your bill that you talked about?
Rather than guess, I'm going to say I would have to look it up, because there was a fiscal note. Right now, today, I don't remember.
Okay. If you were reelected, what's going to be your top priority in the next session, Steve?
Well, I still think it's the big three. I mean, there's a three-legged stool for a balance, and jobs that will support a family, fair funding for education, and affordable health care for every resident in Wisconsin. And we can't take one of those legs away from that stool without upsetting the balance.
Well, let's talk about schools first.
Okay.
You represent a rural district,
yes.
Right? The unique needs of rural schools. Let me pose the question this way: If you're reelected, the next budget is up, and you're debating aid to schools, what are you going to be what are going to be your priorities?
I would like to see where every student gets the same dollar amount value of funding. And, our rural school boards do face problems that the other school boards don't. And one is geography. We have a lot of real estate, few people. And they say, well, you got so much real estate behind every student, you don't need our funds. They don't follow that logic to the end of the street, because that also means that the cost of local government is higher also. Mm-hmm. And so underfund our kids, and a higher cost for local services, and our pocketbooks are really getting hammered. And so by the time we're done paying our property taxes, there's less money to spend on our downtown merchants. And it's kind of a triple whammy.
Some Democrats, like Tony Evers' plan, they call it the fair funding plan for schools. Are you a believer in that plan?
It's a good start.
It
might need some tweaking, but it's a good start.
Okay. A big issue next year, as it was during the last session, is going to be whether to expand voucher and choice schools. Your position on that?
I can't support that. If you want to kill public schools in our state, expand vouchers statewide. Former governors have said, we can barely afford the system we have now. How can we afford two systems?
Would you let it continue in the city of Milwaukee, which has had it more than 25 years, and Racine, which has had it, I think, 2 or 3 years?
Well, the expansion in Racine has shown that most of the kids that got vouchers already went to the private schools. So I question how effective that has been. And in Milwaukee, if the data supports it, let it continue. If the data doesn't support it, then why are we trying to do two systems? Also, was it December of 2013, we had a private school in Milwaukee close their doors, leave their students out on the curb. The owners go to a gated community in Florida. We had a resolution on the floor of the assembly to ask the Attorney General to go get our money back. And of course it got tabled. But this was putting profits before children, and that's just wrong.
Governor Walker this summer called for Wisconsin to withdraw from the Common Core standards. Your reaction?
Well, my first thought is still today is, where was the governor last March when this idea was in the halls of the Capitol? The Senate and Assembly were looking for some leadership, and the governor was silent. And now in the middle of a tight race, coming down the home stretch, he brings up this Common Core, Common Core. Is this a sign of political desperation? Presidential politics? Don't know.
Do you think Wisconsin should withdraw from Common Core?
No.
Okay.
I believe that the Department of Public Instruction sets he's the head of the school system in Wisconsin, and sets the standards. And then I do believe in local control, where school boards, parents, and teachers should be making the decisions, not politicians in Madison.
Transportation funding, there are estimates that we could be $600 million, $700 million short in the next 2-year budget. If there's a deficit, how should it be made up, Steve?
Well, the transportation issue, funding issue, is really critical. And, I want to start by saying that roads are commerce, and commerce pays the freight for every other thing in our state. And so we have a lot of agricultural production as well as manufacturing production. But the business cycle is not completed until our products are shipped to market and dollars are back in our bank accounts. And we need an efficient transportation system to be able to be competitive in a worldwide marketplace. Tourism. Tourists are not going to go to destinations like Chautauqua or Long Lake or Spooner on substandard roads. So every job in the future of our state is at stake with our transportation funding mess. All the stakeholders have to come and figure out a solution that is a fair balance.
Would you consider raising the gas tax? That hasn't been raised since 2006. You and I pay $75 to register our car. That hasn't been raised since 2008.
That's something that should be looked at. There's a lot of old clunkers out there that people, drive. And it might be just an old pickup truck that's used for some specific purposes. Maybe they don't put 3,000 miles a year on it. Well, maybe if we were to raise gas taxes, we should reduce the registration. So at the end of the day, it's a fair balance. If you're driving one of these new cars that gets, that doesn't even use gas, might be electrical powered, or let's say it gets 60 miles to the gallon, you're still using the roads. And so there's got to be, maybe your registration should be raised. So at the end of the day, there's a fair balance. It's like that registration enables you to drive to any spot in our country. Now, whether you choose to use that or not is up to you.
The third priority you mentioned was every citizen in Wisconsin deserves the right to have access to quality, affordable health care. So what changes would you like to see made to achieve this goal?
Well, I think a good start would be take the Medicaid expansion.
Okay.
I mean, that would solve a couple of areas. And number one, it would reduce our state budget deficit looking toward the future. Number two, I've been told it would create 10,000 jobs. I know that hospitals and clinics in my area have been laying people off. And the third thing, it probably would, right now with underfunding of Medicaid reimbursement to healthcare providers, tells a couple of things. Number one, it says that you're not important. And then the other thing, it shifts costs to the people that do pay bills. And that's now we're talking about affordability. So if Medicaid was reimbursed at a reasonable rate, it would cut the cost to the people that pay the bills otherwise, making healthcare more affordable. And I think that's just a good start.
So you think the Medicaid rate should be increased? The American Hospital Association says we're second from the bottom.
Yes. I mean, I think our healthcare providers should be a higher priority in our state than number 49.
The explosion of frac sand mining in western Wisconsin. You've heard the debate in the Capitol. Should the state government set minimal standards local governments couldn't go beyond, or is it purely a local control issue?
To me, it's nothing but local control. The state should stay out of it. I mean, look what happened this spring. And there's a trend in our capital right now to trample the rights of local elected officials. Not reduce their responsibilities, just handcuff the tools, short them on the tools in their toolbox. And if you look at Barron County, Wisconsin, it's one of the leaders in frac sand production. And our local elected leaders, as well as our county board, have done a good job of being able to balance the concerns of the various stakeholders, frac sand companies and adjoining neighbors. And, to say, gee, you no longer control roads or traffic or explosives in mining or air and water quality standards, just not right. This is happening in their neighborhoods. It's not happening in Madison.
It's not in your district, but are you being asked your position on the proposed Gogebic mine in Ashland and Iron County?
Well, that's a great question. I can give you 700,000 reasons that the current mining law should be amended. And I'm going to start out by saying we can balance jobs and environmental protection. And I was one of the sponsors of a substitute amendment to SB 1 that would do just that. And I made my maiden speech about this issue. And I talked about how in Wisconsin we have a common goal of making our state the best place to live, raise a family, work, and do business. And I talked about how America is the country that put a man on the moon and brought him back safely. We can engineer how to dig my iron ore out of the ground and protect the environment at the same time. But just as with space travel, when we took some shortcuts, we had a Challenger disaster and a Columbia disaster. We cannot take shortcuts on environmental protections and avoid a Lake Superior disaster.
The bill to legalize medical marijuana is going to come back next session. The states of Washington and Colorado have legalized recreational marijuana. Your position on both those issues?
Well, I voted for the use of cannabidiol oil as a medicine, and that's a hard word to say, and it's even harder to spell. And I could see under the proper circumstances with a physician's control the medicinal use of marijuana. I also hold a commercial driver's license. I've been educated on the effects of driving while impaired, and I cannot support recreational use of marijuana. And I hope that's not what it takes to get our Green Bay Packers back to the Super Bowl.
First offense, drunken driving. Should it be a crime?
No. Everyone deserves a second chance. So we're entitled to a mistake. I do think the procedure should be changed, that a person cited for drunken driving should have to come and stand before a judge, listen, see how severe, the severity of the offense, and know what's going to come on your second chance.
Okay. Finally, do you want to highlight differences between you and your opponent on November 4?
A lot of life experience. I'm a father and a grandfather. a taxpayer, a former business owner. I've signed the fronts of paychecks as well as the back of paychecks. And, you know, I've worked hard. In the state capitol, I have the most bipartisan record. I'm proud of that record. And I've learned how to work across party lines and solve problems. I know that party labels and dollars do not solve problems. Problems are solved when people work together.
Thank you. State Representative Steve Smith of Shell Lake is a Democrat seeking re-election in Assembly District 75. Steve, thanks for talking to Wisconsin Eye.
Thank you for having me come.